Hello and welcome back to my craft room. So the Great Big Little Stitchery #1 is over and it's time to start putting all my beautiful Stitchery swaps together into what was going to be one book, one fabric journal. I don't know who I thought I was kidding. My treasury of stitches. In fact, I'm going to have to make at least 3 if not 4 books of them. Oh, but they're going to be amazing, and I've always been looking forward to this part more than anything else. And it's just a perfect time of year because it's all autumn here, and I'm ready to settle down with a new slow stitching project. And this is definitely going to be a labour of love for sure. So last time I showed you what all I was doing was putting everything in front of me and just taking stock of what I have to deal with. I'd taken out all of the notes and cards and things. Somehow magically thought that was going to bring everything down to 1 book's worth, but it didn't. And there's a massive pile on my desk of all the beautiful swaps I've been sent. I mean, with 40 I sent out 45, but I got way more than that back because some people sent me squares even though I couldn't take any more swaps. And there are a couple of people like Christine Preston and Maggie Morris who sent me loads of beautiful stitched pieces, and some of those are squares, so I wanted to bring them in as well. So I ended up with this huge great pile on my desk, as well as all the other lovely little bits of trims and fabric that people sent that I'd like to incorporate as well. So I've moved on a bit. I've actually started putting my first book together, so I thought you might like to see how I'm going on in case you're wondering what to do with yours. I know some people are doing quilts, some people are framing them. You know, if you've only got 3 or 4, it'd be a lovely thing to just frame. For me, what I wanted to do was make books so that and give each square a page of its own, so to just sort of enjoy each square in its own right. That's just, yeah. And it's going to be like a little catalogue of inspiration to bring out whenever I need to sort of cheering up or to get some new ideas, because people were so creative and so inventive. Every single square was so different. It just, yeah. Anyway, you'll see, hang on. So let's go to the desk and you can see what I've been doing here. So I've now got 3 piles. I wanted to bear in mind that stitches are going to be seen opposite each other as I open the pages. So I wanted to put pairs together that complemented each other in some way. Similar theme, similar colours, style or whatever. Or from the same person. Some people actually sent me more than 1 square as well. So I've got my 3 piles. I did have little labels clipped to each square so that I wouldn't forget who gave me which, because it is a lot to keep track of. I'll put those 2 out the way now. I've now taken, with this pile, I've taken the clips off, and I've actually written on the back of each square where people hadn't done that already. Some people had, like Kate has already written her name on the back there. But where they hadn't, I've actually written it on myself so I won't forget who that was from. Because one of my ideas is to actually embroider the person's name into the page. I'm going to do some stitching myself into the page. I'm so looking forward to it. Oh, lost my thread now. Lost my thread. So all of those are in order, and I've put them together in pairs that I think complement each other. So you can see there the colours complement each other. Again, now I felt the colours and the style went together nicely, even though they're from different people. There, the colours are very different and the style's different, but similar theme. Oh, it's going to be so wonderful to leaf through these, isn't it, when they're all done? Oh, okay. So to actually start putting the book together, what I've done is I've torn a strip. I measured the biggest square in all of my books, and actually the biggest one is going to be in this batch. I want to put these were some of the beautiful pieces that Maggie Morris sent me, and I wanted to put them all together on the page like that. Because Maggie did also follow along and do the scrappy string quilt as well, and I just thought it would be nice to kind of remember that. So this was the biggest, so obviously this is bigger than the, you know, most of the swap squares were 10 centimetres. This is bigger than that. It's, even with no gap, it's 16. And I wanted a bit of space all around. So what I've done is decided that each of my pages on all 3 books, because I want them all to look kind of the same, or at least of a set. So I decided on 18 centimetre squares as the size of my pages, so that's what you see here. So I tore off of my piece of calico, I just made a little snip, measured 18 centimetres, made a little snip and tore these 18 centimetre strips, and then I measured 18 centimetres that way. So you can do that easily by, we know this is 18 centimetres, fold that along, and you know there is going to be 18 centimetres. And I kind of concertina folded the strips all the way along, and I came to the end of one strip and had to join in another one. So this, I've just done that by, you can see there's a little end here which I've folded over, which I was thinking I would join together. However, I've rethought the idea. I'm not going to keep it as a concertina. So that is partly because I feel like it would be a little bit difficult to work with. I'll have the whole lot in front of me, and that's just, you know, when I'm just working on one page, I'll have all the others in my way. So I decided that was a bad idea. I'll take this lovely square from Annie Cran out the way. So I've decided each of these kind of pairs of pages is going to be separate. And I also quite like the idea, I love these frayed edges here, and I might even fray them out a bit more. And I think I'd like all the edges to be frayed, the front edge as well. So what I'm going to do now is probably cut each of these pairs apart. I'll just tear that. Keep that aside. And yeah, if they don't end up perfect, I don't mind. I don't think that matters at all. So I'm going to end up with lots of pairs of pages like this. I will embroider in the person's name. I will do probably just some kind of canter stitching, I don't know, whatever takes my fancy, onto around each one to complement each one. You won't see the backs, because once I've done that, once I've done all the pairs, I will then start joining the pairs together. So I will stitch around these three edges. I'll come back and show you that. It's very simple. It's a really simple way to do it. I've done something similar before, following along with Anne Brooke. So Anne Brooke, Textile Artist on YouTube. I'll try and remember to leave a link to her. So I was following along with Anne Brooke when I made this a couple of years ago. So it was the Sew for the Soul book. Can't take credit for this beautiful embroidery here. This is antique Chinese embroidery from a beautiful jacket. It's all silk. It's lovely. I just trimmed a piece out of the front of the jacket and lined it and added a bit of stitching and stuff. My stepdaughter came round when I was in the middle of doing it and thought I was making a really fancy face mask. Oh God. 2021, that's when I did it, so it was 2 years ago. So I have done a video before showing through this book, so I'm not going to do that now. I'll try and remember to leave a link to that, but I'm going to put the book together in a kind of a similar way, except with these pages each one had wadding in between. You started off with wadding and then you applied the pages to it. I don't need that because I've got enough thickness already, but I'm going to do a similar idea, so it'll go together kind of like this has gone together. Yeah, it looks pretty much like a real book because you've even got that gap there like you get with a real book. That's kind of the look and feel I'm going for, and I had imagined it would be about this size. It's actually going to be a bit bigger. Now this is going to be something different. For this I've got to cut a hole in I've got to have this I've got to make a cover with a heart-shaped peephole basically so that this can come through the peephole. So this will be a little bit different, so I'm going to put that to one side for a minute because that's going to complicate things. But the idea will be that I'll make all these little pairs of pages. When they're all done, actually let's just get one more pair ready so that I can show you. I so enjoy this whole process. Thank you very much to everybody who's posting nice pictures of the square, the whole square and nothing but the squares that they've received, and the ones that they've sent out ready for the gallery. I will gradually start going through and collating all of that. So when I've got all of these done and all the stitching that I want is finished, I will go through and start joining the pages together back to back like that. So for this pair, this pair of pairs, I will hold them together, like I will clip them together, and I will stitch around this here, here and here. So then I'll have those joined together, and then I'll go into the next pair and I'll join that back to back with this one. So eventually I'll end up with a whole stack of pages all joined together around these three edges, and then all I've got to do is put a cover. So I'll probably use some nice fabric for the cover, but I'll use this as backing. So the cover will wrap around like this. So let's actually do this. That's about as fat as it's going to need to be. So I should be able to cut this ready now. I'll cut it a bit on the generous side. And I think this time I want it to be a bit of a wrap cover. So let's cut it there. So that will be the final cover, wrapping around. That will be probably tucked in like that. So to attach the cover to the book, I'll have to decide what wording I want to put here, whether I put Great Big Little Stitchery Sock 2023. In one of the books, this one, that's why I've put Jackie's squares at the front. I'm going to use a design that Jackie actually sent me, of a pair of scissors with she runs with scissors. Anyway, it looks almost like a tattoo design, and I really took my fancy, and she very kindly sent it to me. So I want that to be the front for the book that Jackie's are in. So each one will have something different, but I'll embroider whatever I'm going to embroider on the front here. Then I will stitch that together as I have all the other pages, and then the cover will wrap around like this, and this page will attach to the cover. So now they'll all be attached together. I don't know if that's going to make sense. It's going to make much more sense when I can actually show you, but I know it's going to work because it's very similar to how we did the Sew for the Soul book. And I must remember to leave, what I'll do is I'll link to the Sew for the Soul playlist. That might be easier because she shows how she puts the book together, and I'm going to do something very similar. So I think then when you open it, you'll see whatever I've decided the front is going to be for each particular book. And you know, I could embroider something on here as well. I need to make sure I do all of my embroidery before I stitch them together. And I'll probably have a calico, this sort of double thickness of calico as a base for the cover, but I will apply other fabrics onto it as well. So now I've got the gist of how I'm going to construct the thing in my head. I cannot wait to get stuck in. So my first job is going to be to tear all of these apart. So I've got just these little pairs of pages, and then just take my time and embroider on each one, including the person's name, and stitch these little squares on. I'm not going to stitch them down completely because you know me, I absolutely love to look at the back, and that's where I've also written the person's name. Some people have written their own name there, so it's nice to see that. So I think I'm just going to be stitching them either along the top or the side, depends on the particular square. So yeah, I suppose the very first job is to stitch each of these squares along the top, and then do whatever my decorative stitching is going to be. It might not just be stitching, I might add little bits of fabric with some of them as well. And I also want to add to the sides of the pages, maybe not all of them, maybe just some of them, I don't know. I just love the idea of having some little tabs at the sides of the pages to sort of stick out, put little buttons on and things like that, charms and what have you. So yeah, it's going to be a really, really fun project to do. And then I've got to do exactly the same with the other two piles. With this one, I'm going to have to, that one has to be applied to that front page, and then I'll have to cut a hole out of the piece that's going to attach it to the cover, and a hole out of the cover as well. So that is going to be a little bit more complicated, but I thought I would just sort of run over what my basic method is going to be in case you wanted to follow along. So if you do want to do this method, I would say first thing is to put your squares into pairs that you like the look of together. Decide what size your finished pages need to be. If I didn't have that one bigger square made up of the 4 squares from Maggie, I would have made this a lot smaller, I think. Well, not a lot smaller, but a little smaller, because this is going to be quite a lot of stitching to do as well, but then it gives me a lot of scope for all that. It would look nice if you just did this in, scrap fabric, all kinds of different colour fabrics and stuff as well. cut your basic pages, I would say just tear off one long strip and do it like I did. That was definitely the quickest way to do it. And then start attaching the squares however you're going to do that. If you wanted to be tidy, you could, because this is why we said leave a border, you could turn them all under as well if you wanted to, but I love the frayed edges. And yeah, and I will add some stitching and bits of scraps and whatever I think tabs to the pages will complement that particular set of squares. And then quite a long way down the line from here, it'll be time to start stitching these pairs of pages together. So it's worth coming on now just to let you know what I'm thinking of doing. How are you? Let me know how you're putting yours together, what you're doing with your squares if you haven't already. And I just think it'd be nice as well if we've all shared pictures of our incoming and outgoing squares. It'd be really nice to see pictures of what everybody's doing with their squares in the end as well. Yeah, and then we've got the gallery to look forward to, and then we've got the next swap. If you didn't join in before, we've got another swap kicking off on the 1st of November, and people are already in the Discord community and the Arty Annie group on Facebook arranging swaps for the next one. So if you do want to jump in and join us, then it's not too late. You've got loads of time, and if you don't jump in until middle of November, you'll still be I think last time people were still looking for new swaps right up to the deadline of the last swap, so it's never too late to join in. I think that's all I need to say for now. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that was useful or gave you a bit of inspiration for what to do with your squares. Perhaps I will be back as soon as I've kind of perhaps done the first couple of pages, so I can show you where I'm going with it. And I'm really looking forward to getting started on that tonight. I can't wait. I'll snuggle up on the sofa with something good on the telly, glass of something by my side, rug over my knees because it is getting chilly, and I'm going to really enjoy getting absorbed into some stitching. I need to stop waffling now. See you again really soon. Bye. Sometimes you just don't know when to stop.